need to tell you something that's been eating me alive for 3 months now, and I can't keep it inside anymore because every time I close my eyes at night, I see his little face, and I wonder if he's thinking about me too, if he remembers the pancakes I used to make him every Saturday morning, if he still sleeps with that stuffed elephant I gave him on his 3rd birthday. And the worst part? The absolute worst part is knowing that I might never get to ask him because of what I discovered on a random Tuesday afternoon when I was doing nothing more suspicious than folding laundry in my daughter-in-law's bedroom. My name is Margaret Rose Henderson. I'm 72 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was in this world. I was a widow of 15 years, a retired elementary school teacher, a mother to 2 grown children, and most importantly, I was Grammy to the most beautiful 6-year-old boy named Oliver James. Except it turns out I wasn't, I'm not, and I never was. And the way I found out has destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family, about trust, about love itself. Let me start from the beginning. From the day 29 years ago, when my son Marcus brought home a girl named Stephanie from college, this petite blind thing with nervous hands and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes, and I remember thinking she seemed sweet but fragile, like something that might break if you held her too tight. And Marcus was so in love with her, it was almost painful to watch, the way he looked at her like she'd hung every star in the sky just for him. And when they got married 3 years later in a small ceremony at the botanical gardens, I cried happy tears because I thought my boy had found his person, his soulmate, his happily ever after. They struggled for years to have a baby. 5 long years of negative pregnancy tests and doctor appointments and Stephanie crying in my kitchen while Marcus worked late at the accounting firm. And I'd hold her hand across my kitchen table and tell her it would happen, that God's timing was perfect, that sometimes the best things take the longest to arrive. And I meant every word, because I loved her by then. I loved her like she was my own daughter. And when she finally got pregnant, when she called me sobbing with joy to tell me the news, I screamed so loud my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, came running over thinking someone had died. Oliver came into this world on a snowy December morning, 8 pounds, 3 ounces of pure perfection, with a head full of dark hair and his father's nose and these tiny, perfect fingers that wrapped around mine in the hospital room while Stephanie slept and Marcus went to get coffee. And I whispered to that baby boy all the things I wanted to teach him, all the places I wanted to take him, all the love I had stored up inside me that had been waiting for a grandchild to finally have somewhere to go. And oh, how I loved that child. I loved him with a fierceness that surprised me, because I thought I'd used up all my love raising my own children. But it turned out there was this whole other reservoir inside me, this bottomless well of devotion that poured out of me every time I looked at Oliver's face. And I was there for everything, every milestone, every moment. I was the grandmother who showed up, who babysat every Friday night so Marcus and Stephanie could have date nights, who knew exactly how Oliver liked his grilled cheese cut into triangles, not squares, who could calm his nightmares by singing the same lullaby I'd sung to Marcus when he was small. I watched him take his first steps in my living room. I was there when his first tooth fell out and we put it under his pillow together and waited for the tooth fairy. I taught him how to tie his shoes using the bunny ears method. I took him to the park every Sunday afternoon where we'd feed the ducks and he'd tell me about his dreams of becoming an astronaut or a superhero, or sometimes both at the same time. And these weren't just grandmother duties I was performing out of obligation. These were the highlights of my life, the moments that made everything else worth enduring, the reason I woke up every morning with something to look forward to. Stephanie had gone back to work when Oliver was 8 months old. Some marketing job that required long hours and frequent travel, and Marcus's accounting firm had him working 60-hour weeks during tax season, which was basically 4 months out of every year. So I became Oliver's primary caregiver more often than not, and I didn't mind. God knows I didn't mind. I treasured every second of it, every scraped knee I bandaged, every story I read, every batch of cookies we burned together because we were too busy laughing to watch the oven timer. But I noticed things over the years, little things that didn't quite add up, but that I explained away because why would I look for problems where there weren't any? Like how Stephanie would sometimes get this distant look in her eyes when Marcus talked about Oliver's features. How she'd go quiet when people said Oliver had his father's chin or his grandmother's eyes. And how she seemed almost relieved when I offered to take Oliver for whole weekends so she and Marcus could travel or just have time alone. And I told myself she was just tired, just overwhelmed by motherhood and work, just someone who needed more space than some people did. And that was okay. Everyone parents differently. Everyone shows love in their own way. Oliver called me Grammy from the moment he could form the word, and it was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard, better than any symphony, better than any poem. And he'd run to me with his arms outstretched whenever I arrived at their house, and he'd cry when I had to leave. And Marcus would joke that Oliver loved me more than he loved his own parents. And we'd all laugh, but there was something in Stephanie's laugh that sounded hollow, something in her eyes that looked almost guilty. But I didn't push it, didn't question it, didn't want to rock the boat of what I thought was a perfectly happy family. 3 months ago, on a Tuesday afternoon in late August, Stephanie called me in a panic because Oliver's school had called to say he had a fever and someone needed to pick him up immediately, but she was in a meeting she couldn't leave, and Marcus was 2 hours away at a client site. And could I possibly go get him and take him back to their house and stay with him until one of them could get home? And of course I said yes. I always said yes when it came to Oliver. I would have walked through fire for that child. I would have given up anything, everything. And I had the spare key to their house that they'd given me years ago for exactly these kinds of emergencies. I picked up Oliver from school and he was burning up, his little face flushed and his eyes glassy. And he curled up against me in the car and fell asleep before we even made it out of the school parking lot. And I drove carefully, protectively, the way you drive when you're carrying precious cargo. And when we got to their house, I carried him upstairs to his room and tucked him into bed with his elephant and a cold washcloth on his forehead, and he mumbled something about his stomach hurting and then drifted back to sleep. Stephanie had told me she'd left some children's fever medicine in her bathroom cabinet, the prescription kind that works better than what you can buy over the counter. So I went into their master bedroom, a room I'd been in dozens of times before when helping Stephanie change sheets or looking for something she needed when she was too busy to find it herself. And I went into their bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet, and that's when I saw it. Tucked behind the bottles of aspirin and cold medicine and Marcus's prescription glasses he never wore, a small orange prescription bottle with Stephanie's name on it. And I wasn't trying to be nosy, I swear I wasn't, but the label caught my eye because it said prenatal vitamins, and they were dated from just 6 months ago. And I thought that was strange because Stephanie had told us they weren't trying for another baby, that Oliver was enough, that her career was too demanding right now for another child. But that wasn't even the thing that made my hands start shaking, the thing that made my breath catch in my throat and my heart start pounding so hard I thought I might be having a heart attack right there in my daughter-in-law's bathroom, was what I saw when I moved that bottle aside and found the envelope behind it, a manila envelope that had been shoved way back in the cabinet like someone had hidden it there and forgotten about it. And I don't know what made me pull it out. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, maybe God himself pushing my hand forward because he knew I needed to see what was inside, even though it was going to destroy me. The envelope wasn't sealed, just had the flap tucked in, and when I opened it, my hands were already trembling because something inside me knew, some deep ancestral knowing that lives in your bones was telling me that whatever was in this envelope was going to change everything. And I pulled out the papers inside and started reading, and the bathroom floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet because I was holding medical documents, paternity test results, dated from 7 years ago, just a few months after Oliver was born. The results showed that Marcus Henderson was not the biological father of Oliver James Henderson, with a 99.9% exclusion rate, meaning there was no chance, no possibility, no hope that my son was actually Oliver's father. And there were 2 sets of results in that envelope. The first one showing Marcus wasn't the father, and the second one, dated 2 weeks later, showing that someone named David Thornton was the biological father with 99.9% probability. And I stood there in that bathroom with those papers shaking in my hands and the whole world crashing down around me. And I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was seeing because it meant that Oliver, my sweet, beautiful, perfect Oliver, wasn't actually my grandson, wasn't actually Marcus's son, wasn't actually part of our family at all. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been 5 minutes or 50. Time had stopped meaning anything, and I could hear Oliver coughing in his room down the hall, and that sound, that familiar sound of a sick child that I had heard so many times before, suddenly seemed different, seemed to belong to someone else's grandchild, someone else's responsibility, someone else's bloodline, except that wasn't true either, because he was still the same child he'd been an hour ago, the same child I had loved for 6 years, the same child who called me Grammy and held my hand and told me I made the best pancakes in the whole world. Nothing about him had changed except everything about what he meant to me, everything about what my relationship to him actually was. My mind was racing with questions that felt like knives cutting into my consciousness. Did Marcus know? Had Stephanie told him and they decided to keep it a secret from everyone? Or was Marcus living a lie, just like I had been? Thinking Oliver was his son when he wasn't, raising another man's child without knowing it. And if Marcus didn't know, then should I tell him? Did I have the right to blow up his marriage, his life, his identity as a father? Or should I keep this terrible secret to myself and let him continue living in ignorant happiness? And what about Oliver? Innocent Oliver, who had no idea that the family he thought was his wasn't actually his at all, who loved his daddy not knowing his daddy wasn't really his daddy, who called me Grammy not knowing I had no biological claim to him whatsoever. I put the papers back in the envelope with shaking hands and shoved it back behind the medicine bottles exactly where I'd found it, and I closed the cabinet door, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. She looked older suddenly, hollowed out, like someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything that mattered and left just an empty shell standing there. And I splashed cold water on my face, and I took several deep breaths, and I went to check on Oliver, who was still sleeping peacefully, still feverish, still the same child he'd always been, even though everything else had changed. I sat in the chair beside Oliver's bed, and I watched him sleep, and I felt like I was mourning something. Mourning the relationship I thought we had, mourning the grandmother I thought I was, mourning the simple, uncomplicated love I'd felt for this child that was now tangled up in lies and secrets and betrayal. And I found myself looking for features that didn't match Marcus or me or anyone in our family, and I hated myself for doing it, but I couldn't stop. I kept studying Oliver's face, looking for signs of this David Thornton person, whoever he was, whatever claim he had to this child I thought was mine. When Stephanie came home 2 hours later, I was still sitting beside Oliver's bed, and she came into the room and thanked me profusely for coming to get him and staying with him. And I looked at her and I wanted to scream, wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her and demand to know how she could do this, how she could let me love this child for 6 years without telling me the truth, how she could watch me bond with him and care for him and pour my heart into him, knowing that none of it was based on what I thought it was based on. But I didn't say anything. I just smiled and said Oliver would be fine, and I'd given him some medicine and I needed to get home. I drove home in a daze, and I sat in my empty house and I cried harder than I'd cried since my husband died 15 years ago. I cried until I couldn't breathe, until my chest ached, until I thought I might actually die from the weight of what I knew. And I realized that I was grieving. I was grieving for a grandchild who was still alive, but who wasn't actually mine. I was grieving for a relationship that still existed but was built on a foundation of lies. I was grieving for the woman I'd been that morning who'd woken up secure in her identity as Grammy, who knew her place in the world, who'd thought she understood her family. The next few days were torture. Marcus called to thank me for helping with Oliver, and I had to pretend everything was fine. Stephanie sent me a text with a photo of Oliver feeling better, and I had to respond with heart emojis like my own heart was shattered into a million pieces. Oliver FaceTimed me to show me a picture he'd drawn at school, and I had to smile, and tell him it was beautiful while fighting back tears because every interaction felt like a lie now, felt like I was participating in this massive deception, even though I was actually the one who'd been deceived. I became obsessed with finding out more. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to know the whole story, needed to understand how this had happened. So I did something I'm not proud of. I searched for David Thornton on Facebook, and I found him immediately. A man about Stephanie's age, living 3 hours away in Cincinnati, married with 2 kids of his own, working as a software engineer. And I studied his photos looking for resemblances to Oliver, and oh God, I found them. I found them in the shape of his eyes and the curve of his smile and the way his hair fell across his forehead. And it was like looking at Oliver's future face, at what Oliver would look like when he grew up. And it made me physically ill because it confirmed what I already knew but had been hoping somehow wasn't true. I spent hours down internet rabbit holes trying to find any connection between Stephanie and this David Thornton, any evidence of an affair or a relationship or even a friendship. But I couldn't find anything. Their social media circles didn't overlap. They had no mutual friends. There was no obvious way they would have even known each other. And that made it worse somehow, made it feel more sordid and random and meaningless. Like my grandson, like the child I'd loved for 6 years, was the product of some brief, meaningless encounter that had accidentally created a life and a lie that had snowballed into this massive deception. I considered confronting Stephanie directly, rehearsed the conversation in my head 1,000 times, imagined myself calm and dignified as I told her I knew the truth and demanded an explanation. But every time I picked up the phone to call her, I chickened out because what if Marcus really didn't know? What if telling her I knew would force her to tell Marcus and destroy his world the way mine had been destroyed? And I didn't think I could live with that, couldn't bear to be the person who brought that kind of pain into my son's life, even though keeping quiet meant carrying this horrible secret alone. The worst part, the absolute worst part, was that I still loved Oliver with the same fierce, protective love I'd always felt for him. Nothing about that had changed. My love for him didn't care about biology or paternity tests or whose DNA he carried. My heart didn't understand the difference between a biological grandchild and a child I'd simply loved and cared for as if he were my own. And that made everything so much more complicated because I thought that discovering the truth would change how I felt about him. Didn't? It just changed how I felt about everything else. About Stephanie, about the foundation of my family, about truth and lies, and what it means to be related to someone. I started avoiding family dinners, making excuses about not feeling well or having other plans, because I couldn't sit across the table from Stephanie and pretend I didn't know what I knew. Couldn't watch Marcus interact with Oliver as father and son while knowing they shared no biological connection. Couldn't be Grammy like I'd always been Grammy, when the title felt fraudulent now, stolen, unearned, even though I'd earned it through 6 years of showing up and loving and caring and being there. Oliver started asking why I wasn't coming around as much. Marcus said he was confused and hurt that Grammy was too busy for him lately. And that broke my heart into even smaller pieces because I wasn't too busy for him. I was drowning in love for him. I was being crushed under the weight of that love combined with the knowledge that it was built on a foundation I hadn't known was cracked. And I didn't know how to explain to a 6-year-old that his Grammy was having a crisis of identity that had nothing to do with him, but everything to do with what he represented. 2 weeks ago, I finally broke down and called my daughter Rachel, who lives in Portland with her husband and their 2 daughters, and I told her everything. Spilled the whole story through sobs and gasps while she listened in shocked silence on the other end of the line. And when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. And then she said something that surprised me. She said, "Mom, do you love Oliver less now that you know?" And I said, "No, God, no. I love him exactly the same. That's what makes this so hard." And she said, "Then maybe that's all that matters. Maybe biology is just biology, and love is what makes a family." And I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't because it felt like I was lying to myself. Like I was trying to rationalize a relationship that wasn't real. Except it was real. It had been real for 6 years. Every moment of it had been real. Every diaper I'd changed and every story I'd read and every tear I'd wiped away had been real, even if the biological connection wasn't. Rachel tried to help me see it from different angles, asked me questions that made me think about what I actually wanted. Did I want Marcus to know the truth, or did I want to protect him from it? Did I want to maintain a relationship with Oliver, or did I want to step back and let Stephanie's family drama be her problem? Did I want closure, or did I want to keep living with the uncertainty of not knowing if anyone else knew what I'd discovered? And I didn't have answers to any of those questions. All I knew was that I was in pain, and I was angry, and I was confused, and I was still desperately, hopelessly in love with a child who might not technically be my grandchild, but who would always feel like mine, regardless of what any paternity test said. Last week, Oliver had his 6th birthday party, and I almost didn't go. I'd been avoiding them so much that missing his birthday would have been suspicious, would have hurt him in a way I couldn't bear to be responsible for. So, I went, and I brought him the Lego set he'd been asking for, and I sang happy birthday with everyone else, and I watched him blow out his candles and make a wish, and when he opened my present, his face lit up the way it always did, and he ran over and threw his arms around me and said, "Thank you, Grammy. You're the best Grammy in the whole world." And I held him and I smelled his little boy smell of grass and chocolate cake and that specific scent that was uniquely Oliver. And I thought, this is what matters. This moment right here. This child who loves me and whom I love. Maybe that's more real than any DNA test could ever be. But then I looked over and saw Stephanie watching us with this strange expression on her face. Something between guilt and fear and sadness. And I wondered if she knew that I knew, if she'd somehow figured out that I'd found those papers, if she was waiting for me to blow up her life the way she'd inadvertently blown up mine. And in that moment, we locked eyes and I saw everything in her face. I saw the affair or one-night stand or whatever it had been. I saw the moment she realized she was pregnant and didn't know whose baby it was. I saw the fear and the decision to lie to Marcus and hope for the best. I saw years of carrying that secret and looking over her shoulder, waiting for it to catch up with her. And I saw her see in my face that I knew. And we had this entire silent conversation across that birthday party room full of 6-year-olds and wrapping paper and chaos. And neither of us said a word, but we both knew that everything had shifted, that there was no going back to before. Since that party, I've been waiting for Stephanie to reach out to me, to call and ask if we can talk, to acknowledge what we both know now. But she hasn't, and I haven't either, and we're in this strange stalemate, where Marcus keeps inviting me over, and Oliver keeps asking when I'm coming to visit, and Stephanie and I are both pretending everything is fine while knowing that nothing is fine, and nothing will ever be fine in the same way it was before. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be a grandmother, whether it's a biological fact or a role you choose to play or something in between. And I don't have any answers. I just know that when Oliver looks at me with those eyes that apparently belong to David Thornton and not to my son Marcus, I don't see a stranger's child. I see the boy I've loved since the moment he entered this world. The boy whose nightmares I've chased away and whose achievements I've celebrated and whose entire life I've been a part of. And maybe that means more than any genetic connection ever could. Or maybe I'm just trying to convince myself that because the alternative is too painful to accept. What I do know is that I'm terrified of what happens next. Terrified that Marcus will find out somehow and blame me for not telling him sooner. Terrified that Stephanie will cut me off from Oliver to protect her secret. Terrified that Oliver will grow up and find out the truth and feel like his whole childhood was a lie. Terrified that I'll die without ever having resolved this, without ever knowing if I made the right choice in staying silent or if I should have burned everything down and let the truth come out no matter the consequences. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The question that haunts me every single day. Does Marcus know? Has he known all along and chosen to love Oliver anyway? Chosen to be his father in every way that matters, regardless of biology? And if that's true, then I'm the only one who's struggling with this. I'm the only one who's letting DNA define a relationship when everyone else has moved past it. But if he doesn't know, then I'm betraying him every day I don't tell him. I'm allowing him to be lied to. I'm participating in the deception, even though I'm not the one who created it. And either way I lose. Either way someone gets hurt. Either way the family I thought I belonged to is not what I believed it to be. I look at my friends and their relationships with their grandchildren, and I feel jealous in a way I never did before. Jealous of the simplicity of their bonds, the uncomplicated joy of being Grammy without any secrets or lies lurking in the background. And I wonder if any of them have similar secrets they're carrying. If maybe all families are held together with a combination of love and carefully maintained fiction. If maybe the truth is too heavy for most of us to carry, and that's why we build these elaborate structures of denial and selective blindness. Just yesterday, Oliver called me on his little kid phone that Stephanie gave him, and he said, "Grammy, I miss you. When are you coming over? Can we make pancakes like we used to?" And I had to take a breath before answering because my voice was shaking. And I said, "Soon, sweetie. Grammy's been a little busy, but I miss you too. I miss you so much." And he said, "I love you, Grammy." And I said, "I love you too, Oliver, more than you know." And after we hung up, I cried again because I realized that whatever biological truth exists, the emotional truth is that this child is mine. He's been mine since the day he was born. He's mine in every way that matters, even if the law and science and family trees would say otherwise. I don't know what I'm going to do with this information. I don't know if I'll ever confront Stephanie or tell Marcus or just carry the secret to my grave. I don't know if knowing the truth has made me a better person or a worse one, wiser or just more burdened. I don't know if Oliver will hate me someday for knowing and not telling or thank me for choosing his happiness over the truth. I don't know anything anymore, except that love is more complicated than I ever imagined. And family is less about blood than I was raised to believe. And the truth can sometimes be the most destructive force in the world. What I do know is that I'm going over to Marcus and Stephanie's house on Saturday morning to make pancakes with Oliver, and I'm going to be Grammy again, fully and completely Grammy, because whatever biology says, whatever paternity tests prove, whatever secrets lie buried in bathroom medicine cabinets, that little boy needs his Grammy, and I need him. And maybe that's the only truth that really matters. Maybe love is the thing that makes us family, and everything else is just noise. But I also know that the secret is eating me alive, that carrying it alone is destroying me from the inside out, that eventually something is going to break. And when it does, I have no idea what will happen to all of us. To Marcus, who might be living a lie or might be the only one at peace with the truth. To Stephanie, who created this situation and now has to live inside it. To Oliver, who is innocent in all of this and deserves better than to be the center of this storm. To me, who discovered something I can never undiscover and now has to figure out how to move forward with this knowledge, burning a hole in my heart. So that's my story. That's my confession. That's the weight I've been carrying for 3 months now. And I'm telling it to you, putting it out into the universe, because maybe saying it out loud will help me figure out what to do next, or maybe it won't. But at least I won't be the only one holding this anymore. At least these words will exist somewhere outside my head. At least someone will know that Margaret Rose Henderson's life imploded on a Tuesday afternoon when all she was trying to do was find medicine for a sick child. At least this moment will be witnessed, even if it never gets resolved. And if you're still listening, if you've stayed with me through this whole messy, painful story, then thank you. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for letting me share this burden for just a moment. Thank you for not judging me for snooping or for staying silent or for being confused about what love means and what family is and what we owe each other when we're bound together by choice rather than by blood. Thank you for understanding that sometimes there are no right answers, only difficult decisions and imperfect love, and the hope that somehow we'll all survive the truth when it finally comes out. Because It will come out. These things always do. And when it does, I just pray that Oliver, my sweet Oliver, my not really grandson who is more mine than almost anything else in this world, I just pray that he'll understand why I made whatever choice I end up making, why I stayed silent or why I spoke up, why I kept being Grammy or why I stepped back, why I protected him or why I prioritized truth. I pray he'll know that every decision I make is because I love him, because I've loved him since before he could walk, because that love is the truest thing in this entire story, even if nothing else is true at all. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please leave a comment below telling me what you think I should do. Should I tell Marcus the truth or keep it to myself? Have you ever been in a situation where knowing the truth felt more like a curse than a blessing? Please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more real stories about family, love, and the complicated truths we carry, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means everything to me as I try to navigate this impossible situation. Until next time, remember that family is complicated, love is messy, and sometimes the hardest thing is knowing when to speak and when to stay silent.